Hello, hello, LinkedIn, and today my Facebook group and YouTube, because those of you that join me regularly know I like to experiment with the different destinations. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Beth Granger. I'm a trainer, consultant, and speaker on the topic of growing your business and brand using LinkedIn. And before I introduce my wonderful guest, I'm going to just do something behind the scenes. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain while I grab the link and make it so the link you may have seen promoting this event actually works. All right, we are here. So today, I would like to introduce you to Janet Falk. She is a communications consultant who advises people like attorneys, CPAs, business owners, consultants, financial services, everyone on media relations and marketing communications. She can help you attract new clients, remain top of mind with prior clients, that's always good, keep in touch with referral sources, and achieve your business goals. And who doesn't want to do that? Welcome, thanks for being here.
Beth, so happy to join you and meet all your colleagues.
I am excited to have you here. We've been talking about having you come on for quite a while, and we finally did it. Yay! So if you're watching us live in any of the sources where I'm sending this, please comment, let us know where you're watching from or which platform you're watching from, and feel free to put in questions and make use of Janet's wonderful information. One of the things I know we've talked about and I've been thinking about is you have a lot of when you're lucky enough to get interviewed by somebody to be in the media, often it'll be by phone call, Zoom, email. Are there ways to make that the most useful for you? And something I think about is to make sure that you get quoted appropriately. But are there some tips or some things people should be thinking about?
Okay, let's take the example that you're having a phone interview, which is the most likely because reporters are working remotely just as their respondents are working remotely. So there are a few things that you should keep in mind. First, even if you went to the same college and were in the same fraternity or sorority, even if you dated the reporter's cousin and met the reporter at Thanksgiving dinner, no, the reporter is not your friend. The reporter is there to do her job, which is to get information that will be valuable to her readers or to her viewers. And any prior relationship that you have with the reporter is frankly immaterial. You want to show the reporter that you have your finger on the pulse of the market, and that if people only knew what Beth Granger knows, they would save time, save money, and make more money. So you want to remember that this is a professional relationship, regardless of how you know the reporter or how you were introduced to the reporter.
I think that's very important. Yeah.
Right.
People do tend to develop relationships with reporters if they're quoted frequently, and you have to be able to separate that potential for being friendly with them outside of that. But when they're interviewing you, it's work.
Right. People often ask me, who do you know at the such and such publication? Thinking that because I have a relationship with the reporter, that they're going to have some kind of in, right? Well, it's always helpful to have a prior relationship, but if I have a prior relationship and I don't have much of a story to tell the reporter, then they're not going to be interested. On the other hand, when it comes to presenting my sources to reporters, I am fearless. And it doesn't matter to me whether I know the reporter or not, because I know that what the reporter really wants is the story. So if you have a good story, then your relationship with the reporter, whether you have one or not, is immaterial. And having a relationship is nice, but don't count on it if you don't have something worth talking about.
That's a great tip. And somebody says, glad to be here with us, a Facebook user. The way it works, the tool we use to go live is called StreamYard. And on Facebook, you have to give StreamYard permission for us to see who you are. So we don't know who you are, but we'll know afterwards. And thank you for being here with us. Do you think that there are ways to prepare ahead of time for an interview?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. What I recommend is that the person prepare 3 points and print them in a very large font. That's because this event is taking place on the phone. The reporter cannot see what's on your desk. So you may think that this is some sort of a cheat sheet, but the reporter has no idea. Imagine you get to the end of the conversation and you realize you didn't talk about point number 2, right? So now you have the opportunity to go back and talk about point number 2. So that's the first way to prepare. The second way to prepare is you should always buttress your insight with something else. It can be an anecdote, it can be an acronym, it can be an analogy, or it can be alliteration. Right? So you have an anecdote that explains whatever point you're trying to make. You have an acronym like WFH, work from home, something that we're all doing now. You can have, an analogy, something that is as clear as day or as clear as mud. Or you can have alliteration. What did I just do? Anecdote, acronym, analogy, alliteration. And that helps everyone to remember what it is that you are talking about. So some other examples.
I'm a big fan of alliteration. And Noel Goldfarb says, hello, Janet.
Oh, no, what a pleasure. It's been a long time. Thank you. So besides those acronym, analogy, anecdote, and alliteration, there are some other things that you can do. I like to use a visual image so that the person can imagine seeing what it is that you're comparing to. So you can talk about a revolving door that doesn't go anywhere, right? And so then the person sees something's going around, right? You can use a reference to popular culture, something that everybody knows, like I'm loving it, right? Which once was a McDonald's slogan, right? Or you can use rhyme, like stop and shop, right? Something that everybody thinks of. So these are ways that you can make your comments more memorable and more quotable when you buttress your insight with additional information. And one more thing, which I just did here, I hope you picked up on it, is I circled back and I summarized everything that I just talked about so that you could remember what it was that I was giving as examples of how to make yourself more quotable and more memorable.
I'd like people take note of these tips. This is important stuff. And I'm sure everyone who's joining us now or on replay is interested in learning about this, because who doesn't want to be quoted and be a resource? Steve says that he puts Post-its on his screen to remind him of topics and to focus his gaze into the camera, which is a little different than a phone call. And then he said it's for Zoom, which has to do with a question that's going to come up in a second, actually. And hey, Vula, thanks for joining us. So there's a difference, I assume, I know, and maybe you can tell us about it, between being a source for a reporter or for the media and being a guest on a podcast or, like we're doing today, a LinkedIn Live. There's different behavior and different preparation, perhaps. Can you tell us a little bit about the difference between the two?
Right. Well, as we mentioned, a reporter is not your friend, but the podcast host is your friend, whether or not they are your friend in real life, like Beth and I are. So you and the podcast host have the same agenda. You both want to educate the audience. So that way you are teaming up. So that's an important difference in terms of how you're going to speak to the audience. Something else that you mentioned is preparation. Oftentimes when you're on a podcast, the podcast host will send you some typical questions. So if they do that, and that has happened to me a number of times, then I can prepare my questions and print them out in large font and have them right in front of me so that I know where the interview is going, and I can make sure that I have provided my anecdote, analogy, acronym, and alliteration in coming up with my responses. So I think those are two very important ways that you can differentiate in terms of your preparation. That is the existing relationship between you and the interviewer, whether it's a reporter or a podcast host, and then your preparation for the actual things that you're going to discuss, which may be, as I said, the 3 points, or you may even have formulated the answers to the questions in advance.
I think that's a great point. There's something else that I think about because I'm not only a host, I've been a guest on people's podcasts or other events. And that is when you are a guest on a podcast or LinkedIn Live or something else, you can help both yourself and the host by sharing that you're going to be on the event and afterwards promoting the event. So, and you can both be promoting each other. And I think that's a great difference. Obviously, if you're quoted in the media, you're going to promote that for yourself, but people don't always promote the other person. When you're on a podcast, you are promoting both yourself and the other person.
Yes, exactly. I mean, that's one of the things that I recommend anytime you have a speaking engagement. So it may be a podcast, or it may be you're leading a workshop, maybe that you're leading a webinar. So my suggestion is to announce that you are going to be participating in said event and say, we're going to be talking about topic 1, topic 2, topic 3, and then you post that on LinkedIn and on your Twitter account and wherever else you are active on social media. And here's what happens as a result when you have included the link and given the topics, right? So a person says, oh my goodness, Janet Falk is going to be speaking about this and that. I'm going to sign up for that event. So that builds the registration. Oh my goodness, Janet Falk is going to be speaking about this and that. I don't know Janet Falk, but I am interested in this topic. I'm going to check out her website and see whether or not this is going to be worth my while to attend this event. Oh my goodness, Janet Falk is speaking at this event and I can't make it. Maybe she would like to speak at my event, right? So the advanced preparation that you do should include promotion so that you get attendance at the event, you attract more interest in yourself as a speaker, and you build the path for future speaking engagements. And of course, since you are including the registration link, you are boosting the host's podcast or the organization's workshop and webinar and so on. Now, it doesn't stop there. Obviously, after you've completed the event, then you're going to do the same thing in reverse. Great conversations with the members of the such and such organization or the attendees at the workshop where we talked about topic 1, topic 2, topic 3. Here's a link to the replay. Or if you don't have time to watch the replay, then here's a summary of what it was that we talked about. And that's something that I like to do, and I think more people should. Not everybody likes to listen to podcasts or watch webinars. I mean, I can appreciate that. Their time is very structured and limited. So if they want to find out how worthwhile it was, then I post a summary of the highlights of the talk, maybe 8 or 10 points. And then the person can read it. It's on my website where I've linked to the appearance and the recording. And they can decide, well, that was very interesting to read about these 5 topics. I'm going to go back and spend 28 minutes listening to that recording. So your promotion should also include pre and post. And as I say, include a summary so that a person can get more of an idea and decide whether or not they want to go back and listen to it.
And something that I'm not sure everybody realized, something that you do and that you are very, you're a proponent of doing this. Some people will share a post and say, oh, I was so proud to have spoken for or been a guest on, and that's it. That's just promotion. But if you share those tips or those I like to go back to, for instance, the post that goes along with this conversation we're having today and put some key takeaways. You want to always be providing value. And I see we have a question. Debbie asks, can Janet talk about how to differentiate, can't speak today, CPA firms, law firms, and others like this, where there are thousands of them? How does she find a way to promote individual firms or individuals? I think that's a great question, Debbie.
That is a very tough question. And that is something that every business, every consultant, every professional has to think about. So off the top of my head, I want to say that you have to show that you have your finger on the pulse of the market and that you know something that other people need to know, Debbie. And they need to know it by a certain date, right? Because if there's some time-sensitive aspect because of regulation or compliance or legislation, then that is going to motivate people. If they don't do something by a certain date, then it's going to cost them money, right? And as an attorney or as an accountant, you are in the business of assuring your client that you have their back and that they won't have to worry about X because you are taking care of it. And that way they can focus on running their business. So you may remember I mentioned a little while ago how you can show someone else that if only they knew what Beth Granger or Janet Falk knows about a subject, they would save time, save money, and make more money. So I think it's very important to put the client's interest in the front and show that you are supporting their client and keeping the client away from whatever violation or problem might lie ahead, and you are protecting their back so that they can focus on what's most important to them, which is running their business and making money. And I would also emphasize that many people on their websites talk about we and how great we are and how great I am and all those wonderful things that I've done. And frankly, I listen to the world's greatest radio station, and you do too. It's called WII-FM. What's in it for me, right? And the more
you to say, did you notice what she just did? She gave an acronym. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. I will gladly say that I didn't invent it. I use it all the time, and I think everyone should use it. Okay, so the most important person in the conversation is you, the client, or you, the prospective client. So the more that you can show that you, the client, is the most important person in the conversation, and that everything is tailored to the success of the client and to the well-being of their business, I think the better off you would be. So those are two things that I would recommend that you should consider, which is keeping in mind the interest of the client and showing that you are always protecting them from whatever danger lies ahead. And if there's a time-sensitive matter, as I said, with a law or regulation, then emphasize that.
Great tips. Thank you. Something you said, or something I was thinking about, how an example is there was some kind of where people had to have certain I don't know if it was harassment training or some kind of training done by a certain point. So a lot of attorneys were promoting that information. And I think it's also, even though there are thousands of people in the same industry, not everyone will reach out to suggest, for instance, a story, or not everyone will be out there sharing their expertise so that people will find them.
Right. So I want to tell an interesting story in that regard, and it may seem a little off topic, but we'll get through it. Who remembers the Boston Marathon bombing case? Right. And so here you have the Tsarnaev brother, and everybody knows that he did it. And still, day after day, we're watching the proceedings being summarized on the news. And mostly there were two attorneys from Foley and Lardner, which is a Boston-based firm where the trial was taking place, commenting. So it was very interesting to me in doing some research around this time that there were some stories quoting an attorney from Miami, right? And you're thinking to yourself, he's an attorney from Miami. What does he know about the case in Boston? Well, he knows everything that everybody else knows because they're not in the courtroom, right? So what I think happened in this case, and this is going to point to the what's in it for me angle, is that everyone wanted to know what the verdict was and what it meant for us as a society, and for the victims' families, and so on and so forth, right? So this attorney, it's my guess, I don't know him personally, probably contacted reporters who were writing about the case and said, I'm a former federal prosecutor. I have tried terrorism cases. If it's guilty, it's this. If it's not guilty, it's that. Here's my cell phone number. Here's my email address. Contact me at any hour of the day or night, and I will have an answer for you to weigh in on this verdict. Okay. So here you have how many thousands of litigating attorneys who could have commented on this case, right? And who weren't in Boston. And yet this one attorney in Miami was able to raise his hand and say, I'm a former federal prosecutor. I've tried terrorism cases. If it's X, it's this. If it's Y, it's that. Contact me. Here's my contact information. So I think that's an example of making yourself available, showing that you have the reader's interest in mind, right? By making yourself available at any hour of the day or night. Here's my email, here's my phone, and so on and so forth. And the what's in it for me, everyone wanted to know what this verdict meant.
That's a great point. And also, I think I heard in what you said that the person may have already provided information. Instead of just saying, oh, you can talk to me, they gave that the information that they thought the reporter might want to know.
Right.
So they provided the value right there up front. Here's what you need to know. Yeah, fascinating. So people who are with us live, if you have, yes, and Steve is recommending Help a Reporter Out as a resource. If you haven't heard of that, that is where you can
May I interrupt you? Okay.
Please.
Help a Reporter Out is a 3 times a day newsletter where reporters send queries looking for a source who can comment on X subject. It has 2 versions. The first version is a paid version, and it comes out an hour earlier than the free version. So if you subscribe to the free version, which you are welcome to do, I subscribe, recognize that you are 1 hour behind the professionals who are already clogging the reporter's inbox with their suggested source. That's the first thing you should realize, is that take into account that your visibility among that torrent of responses is going to be at the tail end of the professionals who have the paid subscription. Now, the second thing I would point out is that many times those questions are about lawnmowers and the history of dice and something that you have no interest in whatsoever, right? So if you have an accounting practice or financial services advisor or something like that, that question is going to come up maybe once a week. And in the meantime, you're getting this newsletter 3 times a day. So consider if that is the best use of your time, okay? With all due respect to my colleagues who do regularly participate in HARO and who subscribe, but those of you who are using the free service recognize the limitations.
I think that's a great point that a lot of people may not have realized. And I will tell you how I like to use it. So yes, I do scan through, and I've been quoted because of responding occasionally. I like to use it as a networking tool. So I look at it 3 times a day. And if I see something that would be good for someone I know, I send it to them, and they have been able to be quoted based on that, even though it's been, by that point, maybe it's 2 hours afterwards. But that's how I like to use it.
I do that too. And I would point out that there are other services. I subscribe to a different paid service where there's often an overlap between the service I use, which is called ProfNet, and HARO. So, so be aware that there are multiple services like that. Yeah.
And one of the questions is, what about ProfNet? So you just got your answer. And Steve says, thank you. Great points. He didn't know that. So I think a lot of people don't realize that there's the paid version. And Steve, you're funny. Steve says, I have some pretty good lawnmower stories, though. Well, then you should share those, Steve.
Yeah, typical Steve. Yeah,
that's right. And different Steve, actually, Steve Burkett. But and Cater wants to know where is your blue jacket? Are you known for a blue jacket?
No, actually, I'm known for a colored jacket. And if I can, I'll tell this story. Back in the day when we used to have in-person networking, I would go to an event where I didn't know anyone. And my procedure was I would send an email in advance to 4 people: the president, the vice president, the membership chair, and the program committee chair. And I would say, will I see you at the networking event on September 10th? And I would say, your name came to my attention as an officer of the such and such organization. I'm a public relations professional and I work with people in the such and such field. So we have an aligned interest. I'm signed up for your event and I look forward to meeting you. I want to get involved in the organization and I want to join the organization. Okay? Now, Beth, let's imagine that you are the membership chair and you get this email from Janet at janetlfalk.com and you don't know who this person is, but you read on and you say, well, I'm an officer and she wants to come to the event. I've got a hot one here. I better write back to her. You would write back, of course, right?
Yep.
And you would say, what would you say, Beth? You would say, Janet, I'm so glad to hear from you. And of course, as an officer, I'm planning to be there and I look forward to meeting you. So now I've got you on the hook and I write back to you and I say, Beth, thank you so much for your letter, and I'm really glad that we'll be able to have this conversation in person. And by the way, it's going to be a very crowded room, so I'm going to wear my white jacket. So you'll be sure to find me in that crowded room. Now, I did this once, and I went to an event, and it was a 300 attorney event at the New Jersey State Bar Association. And I didn't know the officers, and what I had done was I had contacted the speakers, because I was able to figure out who the speakers were. And I told them that I would be wearing my blue jacket, my royal blue jacket. Now, here I am at lunch. We're in this huge ballroom. Everybody's seated randomly. 4 people who were speakers found me in that room because I was wearing my distinctive colored jacket. And by the way, one of those speakers and I hit it off. And she referred me 2 clients, all because she found me because I was wearing a distinctive colored jacket. Now that we're not doing in-person events for the time being, I would still encourage you to do something a little bit similar. And in fact, someone just invited me to a BNI meeting. Many people here know BNI is Business Network International. And they have meetings every week at the very respectable 7 a.m. or 6 p.m. hour. And what's nice about BNI is they list all their members on the website. So now that I'm signed up to go to this event, which is going to be on Wednesday, I am planning on Monday to, from the website, send a similar note to the members of this BNI chapter and say, I'm looking forward to meeting you at this event. I was invited by so-and-so. And then I put my name and I put my website URL so that in advance of the event, they are expecting to meet me. And then they can go to my website. And I find I get a very high response rate when I introduce myself in advance. So even if we're not doing
the jacket thing, though, you still could you still could say, I could say I'll be the one with the blue background, or you could say I'll be wearing a blue jacket.
Well, I could, but at the same time, my name is going to be clearly displayed. So, I don't have to be found in a crowded room with many people who are wearing black and navy blue jackets, right?
Right.
Let's face it. But when we go back to in-person networking, I recommend that women wear a distinctive colored jacket or a scarf, and men wear a distinctive colored tie, green or orange, or men can wear a pocket square that has a color so that they will be able to be found. The whole point of going to a networking event in this circumstance is to be found. So when we go back to in-person, please use color so that other people can find you in the crowded room.
I love it. You have shared so much great stuff today. I will be going back after the fact and putting some takeaways in the text that goes along with the recording. Thank you to those of you who have joined us live. I can't believe it. Half hour goes far too quickly, but reach out to Janet if you have other questions. Get to know her if you don't already. Janet, thank you so much for joining me today.
No, it's my pleasure, Beth. And, and hi to Cater, who I haven't seen in a long time either.
It's really a lot of fun when I see names pop up of people that I know but maybe haven't spoken to in a while. So it's great. This has been great fun. Everybody have a great rest of the day, and I'll see you next week. I'm going to be going live at a different time. I forget which day it is, but I'll be going live at 7 at night because my guest is from Australia. So that's just a little taste. I'll be sharing more later on or tomorrow or another day about who my guest is and why we're doing it at 7 o'clock, because she's from Australia. So have a great rest of the day, everybody. Bye-bye.